That was the last time I think I ever went door to door selling tickets. And what I had to do was present myself with these tickets, or present them with the tickets, and what the money was going to, what they could win, things like that. It was interesting.
Oh my gosh.
I'm what, 10 years old, going
Yeah.
door to door.
Yeah.
My mom's in the car waiting, and and I'm walking. She could tell when I had a bad sale. When I'm walking back to the car with my head down. Yeah, they didn't want any tickets.
Yeah.
Because I wanted tickets, because if you sold the most, you got the biggest prize.
What'd you get? Like
So back in the day, iPads and things were the thing. It was the scooter.
Yeah.
So I wanted this dang scooter, but I ended up getting second. And I talked to the guy that got first. I was like, hey, let's just trade, and it worked out.
That's so good.
It's tough.
Have you ever actually experienced one of those incredible door-to-door guys or gals?
Oh yeah.
Like they come to your house, and next thing you know, you're buying a $1,200 vacuum. Have you ever had this?
Or you're buying Spectrum's Wi-Fi, and you got I don't talk about that
either. Have you had that happen?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I had a vacuum guy, and it didn't matter what I said to this guy. He was polished, man.
Yeah.
He could. I'm like, hey man, I'm not interested. And he's like, but here's the thing. Do you have dirt on your floors right now? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, he's asking these questions that are just obvious, right, and had the best objection selling, spin selling concept in the world. If you haven't read Spin Selling, it's probably one of the more interesting books that I've read in the sales aspect. I do recommend actually reading it, just because it's kind of gives you an idea of maybe even somehow how my mind works. But I think objections are something that you need to be prepared for, is where I'm going with this. They are, I'm going to slap you in the face. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Because everyone's going to tell you no. I mean, I made calls yesterday with a broker, and it was awesome. It was really good. I mean, we had some great objection sales. There were some we flopped on, and you don't have to be perfect every time, for the love of God, but you got to be prepared for at least the most common ones. We're going to go through those.
The people selling holy sand from Israel in the mall straight closing.
Dude, I don't know how many Israelis watch this show. They are legit.
They go hard.
They go hard in the paint. I am not kidding you, man. Like I watched this guy the other day on TikTok Shop. I got stuck. What do you do? And he was selling like some kind of resin or something. Like some kind of crazy resin. You rub it on your skin and it makes you look more Israeli. Like it gives you this golden, beautiful skin. It's very moist and lush. Yeah. Unlike my friggin' scaled legs here that it just, I mean, I can't get enough Old Spice friggin' lotion on them. I'm like, come on now, right? Yeah. But he had he just talked so fast. I'm like, all right, you gotta slow down here.
Right.
But we are going to cover some of the better objections. You're going to say the objections. I'm going to give you the rebuttal. Right. Something that I think was really interesting in those calls yesterday. Jared, you would not want the answer. I'm not going to disagree. But something that was said yesterday, and I thought this was really interesting. The lady answered the phone. And walnut avocado oil, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's always these crazy,
remedies.
Yeah.
I love it.
It makes you skinnier and more attractive to people, and puts out an odor so that women walk by you and just think, "Man, he's the guy." But it's not. It's just avocado oil. Welcome to the moisturizing with Jared. Exactly. I should do a test on that, Adam. Just sit here. And I'll try different lotions to see where it goes.
Oh my God! I mean,
that's so good.
Give me the camera.
But here's what I loved about this lady yesterday. This lady said, "Have you ever heard?" There was and I thought this was probably one of the more interesting objections. So I got to give it up for the broker that said this. Have you ever heard Nick Saban talk about? And this was either last year or the year before, but he talked about. One of the reporters said, "Hey, what does this year look like? And do you expect yourself in the national championship?" Mm-hmm. And he responded back and he said, here's my hope for this year, is that I want to run every play at the best of our team's ability. 100%. Every play. And if we do that every play, all 185 plays in a game, the outcome should be that we win. Right. If we play it every single one. So I'm sitting there, and yesterday the broker said something that I thought was really interesting. The guy said, "Hey, no, we're not bringing on any brokers," and his response was probably one of the more interesting things. He said, "I'm not really looking to take over your supply chain. What I'm looking to do is to give you the best service possible on each individual shipment. And that's through communication, that's through proper billing, and that's through, what else did he say? He said service, communication, and proper billing." And the guy goes, "Huh, it's an interesting comment." Mm-hmm. And it continued the conversation. Just wholeheartedly, humbly, just coming to the table saying, "Hey, I'm not taking over your relationships. All I want to do is show you that I give you 100% on every single load, even if you just give me one." Right. And it was awesome.
Right. I love that because you're a big fan of acknowledging that feedback, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we're not bringing on any brokers. Hey, I completely understand. Yeah. Right? You are a big fan of that. And I love that because it shows them that you understand where they're coming from.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not being pushy.
Yeah.
And I think as humans, we are so afraid that we think we're going to get an objection, so we don't do it. I think the more objections we do here as a person, like the easier it gets to either respond or just take in. So I think the more objections a phone call someone makes, you just get better.
Yeah.
But
you just get a lot more reps.
Oh, for sure.
You just get so many more reps. And I think that's what it all comes down to. It's no different than Kobe or, any of those great all-stars. Yep. They just put in the reps.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Even some of your seasoned or professional or pro freight brokers, if you will, they're still putting in reps too.
Yeah.
You shouldn't get, content in this industry because it's so competitive.
Oh, man.
I saw Cody from AZ Trucking. He mentioned that this morning was, business is earned. It's so competitive out here. Someone's always calling your prospect.
Yeah.
How do you make yourself different from that last caller? Mm-hmm. And like how you mentioned that yesterday with that broker, I think that probably shook that shipper a little bit. It was like, oh, man, I haven't heard this before.
Yeah.
Tell me more, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
I also think to a certain extent, cold calls could be more Israeli-like. That cat in the mall, right? And the reason why I say that is you've got to have a little bit of showmanship. You have to give a little bit of value. And where I'm going with that is if I get a cold call and I'm the shipper, can you imagine me being a shipping manager? Like
I feel like you'd entertain so many calls.
I feel like I should go secretly, like this is like boss job sort of thing. I should secretly go get a shipping manager job. Like I'm just taking calls and recording it on YouTube. Just here we are, folks. But I think it's really important, and this is for anybody that's calling, that's sitting out there, and just saying, hey, do you have any loads? I think somehow or another we have to think in a showmanship way or in a value-driven way. That what if you went to those shippers and said, hey, I've seen these 3 things over the last 6 months in the spot market, and I wanted to make you aware of them. Would you have 15 minutes next week that we can sit down and talk about them? And then maybe you do your little pitch. Hey, I'm not looking to sell anything. I just want to give you these 3 things. Would you have some time today or tomorrow or next week that would work for you? We could try that too. Maybe we should do some calls. But I think honestly, I just love picking up the phone, by the way. I can't get enough of it. I think if you call shipping managers, 1 out of 10, I bet 5 out of 10 would probably be like, yeah, what have you heard? You know what I mean? Right. Like what is it that, that makes the most sense?
Right.
Let's talk about it. I mean, you got fuel going down, you've got spot rates going down. There was another objection that may be on your list is, and I thought this was probably one of the more interesting things that could have came out of his mouth. He said, you know what? We have an old relationship with a carrier in town, and they're a brokerage as well, and we're good. We're not looking for any more brokers. And that broker, this is what he said, and I loved it. It came right out of his mouth. He said, hey, I love that you're with another broker. I love that you're with another carrier. The spot market has been so crazy lately with ups and downs. I'd love to just give you a comparison quote so that you can make sure that you're getting a competitive rate in order to keep your supply chain costs down. Would you have interest in that? The guy said yes. This guy's been with the same broker for 20 years, and all of a sudden now we're getting a quote. Sign me up.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're just adding value in your objection statements, but you have to have a little bit of showmanship.
Right.
You got to sound okay. Look at your tone. Look at your tonality. Look how fast you're talking. Look how slow we're talking, right? Slow things down a little bit. We don't need to be the micro machine man. All right, I'm dating myself there. Nobody probably even knows who the hell that is.
I know.
Yeah, that's right. But we don't need to be talking like an auctioneer. But we also need to make sure that we're relating to them. Humans are humans.
Right. And one thing too, I think we just overthink a lot of things. Like, think about what you're good at. Are you good at communicating?
Mm.
You know, do you show, you know, a lot of respect over the phone? Like, people appreciate that. And I think we overthink sometimes of, okay, well, how can I bring this person value? You know, you talked about billing and, you know, being seamless, or maybe having a product like eCarrier Check and hiring great carriers.
Yeah.
You know, try not to overthink what your value is. You know, sit back and think about what you're good at.
Yeah.
How can that benefit that shipper, and maybe, you know, start a relationship.
Yeah.
But I do believe there's a lot of people I talk to on the phone, and it's a lot of overthinking. And I get it.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Heck, I did it yesterday.
Yeah.
I was overthinking, right?
Yeah.
You really just got to take a step back and just think about where you're at, and just believe in yourself. I think that's one thing too. So
yeah, shippers are way more educated now.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
They're answering phones 100 calls a day. Like they've heard it all.
Way more educated. They understand how brokers get freight or trucks, right? Or a majority of them, right? And so I think it's really interesting that you know, if you take a step back and think about what's important to them, and then put that into your value selling.
How do we understand what's important to them?
That's a good question. You know, find trucks a different way than every other broker. You know, dispatchers call us all the time. Well, how do I get a truck? Well, sound different. Get your loads anywhere else other than load boards. Go build relationships with brokers. Go find any other way of doing it. You've got to be different. You know what I mean? And so if you think about what's important to these shipping managers, is they want to know that you're getting your trucks differently and safely, and that you're going to build things smoothly, right? You've got to sound trustworthy. We're picking up the phone and having a conversation with somebody. Boy, you better have it together, right? And so knowing what's important to them, go follow 100 of them on LinkedIn. Go look at all their posts see what they're bitching about. Or see what they're, you know what I mean? And don't follow them and then DM them right away.
No, don't be crazy.
But you know, follow them and just see what ticks. You know, there's hundreds of shipping managers on LinkedIn right now. Some have a voice, some don't. Some don't want to be bothered because they're getting so many calls.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to kind of to see what they're into. I know, just like you, I love the whole LinkedIn thing because everyone's on LinkedIn. And I like how you can see what people are liking, things like that. I think that's a huge one for me. Yeah, definitely.
One of the things that I noticed when I was selling more at a higher level, right? And these are Fortune 5,000 companies, Fortune 1,000 companies. Okay, is here's what your research looks like. It's not going by products and then going on their website and they sell, you know, HVAC units. It's actually going to their financial news, going to their quarterly report, downloading this 76-page freaking quarterly report, and typing in Control F logistics, supply chain, and try to understand what is in their CEO's mind when it comes to inventory costs, when it comes to demand, when it comes to what's ticking them off, because what they are going to convey is now all the important to the logistics manager, the supply chain manager, the transportation manager, right? So if you're selling at a high level, that 5,000, you know, they're on the New York Stock Exchange, or, you know, wherever they may be listed. Well, they're putting out their financials. They're going to put out that meeting, every quarter they give you the opportunity to find that.
Right.
Go download 100 today. I'm telling you, this, you want to change next week? Well, next week's a weird week because of 4th of July and everybody's off Thursday, Friday.
Be different. Here
Be
we go.
different, right?
Here we go.
Go download 20 investor reports next week and Control F. You might delete them off your computer depending on how much memory you have. There's a whole nother, you got to get an IT guy. That's another story.
Yeah.
But I go in and do exactly what I said there, and you'll find out what's making them tick. You asked how do we find out what's important? Well, the CEO is going to tell the logistics guy what's important.
Yeah. I like that.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even when I worked for Tiffany and Company, you know, it bled down what was important to him, even to us peasant salespeople,
Mm-hmm.
right? I didn't manage a store. I'm selling.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm building relationships for him.
Right.
I knew what was important to him because they put it on the walls.
Yep.
Those things are in the quarterly report.
That's interesting. You know, I don't know how many people today that are watching have maybe thought of doing something like you just mentioned. You know, if you haven't, I'm glad you're here today because, you know, it's been done before. You've done this.
Yeah.
This could help you.
Yeah, I landed multiple. Well, the one count was $1 billion in top line revenue every year. We landed their supply chain, the whole thing, all from reading an investor report.
Right. You know, I'd be interested too if those that are watching that are on the calls or making calls weekly or daily. You know, what are some of the responses you're getting from shippers? And, you know, let's talk through those. Throw them in the comments if you will. But, you know, one thing I do have on my list too, I always get the call of, you know, brokers saying, hey, what's it mean when the customer says when a shipper says their customer routed, or how do I respond to that? You know, talk to me or walk me through some of that responses or how you would respond to that.
If I was a shipping manager, I would use this all the time, whether they are or not.
Just to get them off the phone.
Yeah, just you know, because there's not a lot of rebuttal, right? There is a little bit. I'll get into that. Essentially, what happens here is when somebody's buying something from this manufacturing, they negotiated the terms that they wanted to control their own freight, okay? Because what was happening in the mid-2000s was all these companies were controlling their own freight, right? And they were marking up their own freight. They were literally making a profit off of their shipping and transportation costs, which is awesome. It makes sense, right? Yeah. And if you think about your supply chain is costing you, you know, with inflation now, it's probably costing anywhere from 10 to 12% of your top line revenue. So $100 million company, right, is probably spending $10 million on their supply chain, and that could be in or out, right? But when it's customer routed, the simple way of defining that is that when their client bought something from them, they told them, I want to control the freight. I want to control the shipping. I'll get a truck lined up in there. Right. And then they use their brokers, right? So a couple of rebuttals or a couple of objection when that comes out of their mouth, right? Is I recommend you either A, acknowledge and ask for their customer list.
Drinks coffee.
I've done this about, I would say like 1 out of 50 it works. I actually this was my favorite ever. We were doing cold calls and I said, hey, I love that you're customer routed. Can you give me your top 5 so that I can take a look at them? He goes, yeah. He goes, just hop on our website. We'll tell you every customer we have. Oh. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? So I get on their website. They had thousands of I didn't even get through them all. My ADD didn't let me. It was they had so many, but I called, I don't know, probably 30, 40 off their website. Really? Yeah. Some of them had freight, some of them didn't. There's number one, right? And number two is that you could actually say, hey, do you, I completely understand that. And this depends on what type of equipment you're in. So keep that into mind. If somebody says, hey, we're all customer routed, I completely understand. Do you have any customers that may be struggling to get trucks in there in a timely manner? Right? And all of a sudden they're like, well, yeah, we have a couple. And I'm like, well, would you have the ability to recommend me, or could I come in and, help them in some regards? I've seen that work a couple times. Not every time, but I've seen it work a couple times. The next one, and this is almost like a Hardy Boys book, like this is choose your own adventure stuff. But there's a lot of rebuttals for that specific comment because this one's the hardest, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is my recommendation would be is acknowledge and then go straight into, hey, I completely understand you're completely customer routed. Some of my other focus is inbound into clients and reverse logistics. And I'd love an opportunity to see if there's returns that maybe you're controlling that freight, or if there's inbound raw material that would make sense for us to talk about. Let's flip flop that on its head. We're not always looking for outbound.
Right.
Sometimes we're looking for returns. Did you see? I don't know if you saw this, but Freightwaves put this out. God, it would have been right after the first of the year of how large reverse logistics is in America. It's humongous. And I know you're watching. Those people that have friggin' bought a mattress, opened up the mattress and like, yeah, I don't really care for it. And then the mattress company tells you to throw it away.
Yeah.
Sure. That's going in the spare bedroom. Aunt Jackie's going to friggin' wear that. She's sitting on friggin' that bed this weekend. That's what's going on. You know what I mean? So it's, you just keep the bed and throw it in somewhere else, right? But think about reverse logistics. It is, Zappos came out with this, mid 2000s.
Okay.
Love Zappos. He's like, hey, any shoe that you want, try them on. You don't like them, send them back. Incredible. Until all of America found out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now they can't do it. Right? Now there's stocking fees and there's all kinds of other things that are coming along with that. Now, not everyone, but reverse logistics is a wonderful conversation to have with a shipping manager.
I like that. That's something that maybe I didn't think of, actually. So I'm glad you threw that out there. And hopefully that stuck with some people.
Yeah.
I appreciate that one.
Here's maybe not my last one, but the one that I like to say, and this is more of a, you can call it what it is. It's a psychological trick, okay? If you're not in control of a situation, how much do you like that situation?
Not a lot.
Right? Okay. You're not in control of it.
Right.
So let's prod the bear. Try this out today. Call a bunch of shippers, and anybody that says this, okay? They say, hey, we don't control my own freight. It's all customer routed. Perfect. Let's just see what happens, okay? So here's what you're going to say. You're going to acknowledge it, and then you're going to go, what is it about that process that you don't like?
Okay.
Because they have something to tell you.
Right.
And it'll at least spur the conversation, okay? I would love to do this, by the way, I would love to do, if I could get 5,000 shipping managers to take just a real quick little test for us and give us a little survey and say, how many of them are just pissed off all the time, or, it's such a wild and rapid industry. Yeah. They just feel worn out. They're getting pulled in a million directions because not only are they responsible for making decisions of who gets afraid, but they got to make the decisions of how it's packed most of the time, how it's loaded on the truck. They got all these dock guys that don't give a damn. They're breaking pallets and stuff like that. Let's just prod the bear and just say, hey, I completely understand. Just from my feedback, what do you not like about that process? And see where it goes, right? If you want to take it in a positive note, you can say, well, what is it about that process that you like, right? It's your choice. It's whether you're feeling frisky or not.
Right.
But it's an interesting question that'll at least start a conversation.
Right.
And that's really all we're trying to do.
Just start the fire.
The guy's already shutting you down. How do we get this thing going?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Start the fire and then maybe focus on that next email or maybe that phone call too.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. That follow-up process is something that just gets lost.
Yeah.
And we have to follow up.
Yeah.
Another thing I got written down here, because I actually heard this on a call Monday, and this is in the same call.
Okay.
This is the 100th call I've gotten today from a freight broker. We're not interested. We have our own trucks.
This is a good one because you're just getting shut down immediately. The guy is not in a good mood. I think you have to kind of have I would either say don't take a personal attitude or a joking attitude. Okay. Yeah. You have to sound different in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
In 3 seconds, how do you sound different?
Yeah.
Right. So you have to either make fun of it in a situation, and and you can do that a few different ways, right? The first one, we heard this from a gal, and I thought this was kind of entertaining. I haven't tried it, but I thought it was entertaining. Was, she said, perfect, I'm not trying to sell trucking. I actually wanted to see if you have any car warranties that you're interested in.
I remember this.
And, in a lighthearted way of cold calling, if you're not in a kind of a lighthearted manner anyway, you have to be you got to be in a different mindset to make cold calls all day.
Oh, yeah,
right?
You do.
And hopefully it's fun. If it's not fun, then you've got to get in your mindset that it is that way. So I think for me, I go down the joking route,
which I love.
Some people don't really care for that. So you either A, get hung up on, or B, they laugh and they give you a second. Okay. I think that when they say that, people do have to be in the purchasing mode. You know what I mean? In order for you to get a client, they need to be needing your services to a certain extent. You know what I mean? And a majority of what you're seeing from shippers is, they've transitioned a lot of freight to transactional in that mid to small level. In that larger level, they go to contract, but those are conversations. Hey, when's your contract up? Oh, okay, well, and you have to kind of work through that. But when they tell you, hey, this is my 100th call today, I'm not interested, I think sometimes at least putting a smile on their face and making their day is possibly the better way of going about it.
I agree. Yeah.
So,
right.
Those are my opinions. I do think if you know something about that person or something about that company or the location, that's going to at least get you in. I've seen some really sly brokers that make calls,
right,
and they have something to personalize it very quick to try to relate very quick.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. If that shipping manager went to Penn State, you know what I mean? And he says, hey, this is my 100th call today. And you'd be like, perfect. What do you think of the Lions today? I didn't really want to talk about freight anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you can relate quickly, then go down that road.
Right. So. I like that. A couple more here, man. I think these are huge too. I don't necessarily hear them a whole lot, but I definitely hear them. Let's go with we only work with asset-based.
This is a really good one, mainly because I've worked for both. And I agree with you, George. You got to get in a great mindset to cold call a day. George, I would be curious because George is kind of you're a different cat. And I love this about you. What are the objections you're hearing this week so far? As far as what are you saying, and what do you, if you don't mind throwing it in the comments? I wish I could just dial you in and just bring you into the platform. We can talk real quick. But when people say that they only use assets, most likely, when you hear that, there has been a situation that has spurred either an extremely negative response or has caused them some drama that they didn't need in their life by hiring a bad broker, right? And so keep that in mind, all right? You're dealing with somebody that's had a terrible experience. And so in my mind, I think it's important to acknowledge that experience or acknowledge what he's trying to tell you at first. Although he said, yes, we only use assets. Perfect. I like to come back and say, hey, I love that you're using assets. I think that's a really important part of a supply chain. What was it about the brokerage that you hired that didn't go the way you needed it to?
Sure.
And I can promise you, you're gonna hit a nerve, right? You're totally gonna hit. Asset drivers usually stay within 500 to 1,000. They don't usually go cross country. Yeah. What I always noticed too, and I didn't realize this because I was in the box, I wasn't outside of the box, is that a lot of asset-based companies are maybe A, not available that day, or B, they don't want to go there. We're from Nebraska, greatest state in the nation outside of Texas.
The heart of America.
Yeah, the heart of America, right? If you haven't got out here, check out the Oregon Trail. It's wonderful. And Nate now could buy you some Mexican food, so stop on by. We'd love an opportunity to.
Margs.
Margs all day. Dollar marks are real in Western Nebraska.
Unlimited chips and salsa.
Yeah,
Sign us
that's
up.
what we do. But what were we talking about?
I forgot now. Chips and salsa.
I'm just kidding. The asset-based
Oh,
companies. So when I sold for an asset-based company, we were an LTL company, but we also had our truckload division. But what would happen is people would be like, hey, you know, I've got this load from your location going up to Fargo, North Dakota. Well, it was out of our network. You know, you hear some of those trainers that talk about, hey, get in your bow tie and stay in your bow tie, or get in your triangle and stay in your triangle, right? And not every carrier wants to go where those loads are going, right? This is why brokers became inexistent. They all of a sudden, well, none of my carriers will do this. Let's call a broker. He'll find somebody, right? That's why we all of a sudden came up.
Right.
Can you imagine being a broker in the 70s? You're just ripping cigarettes in the office and just calling trucks, just dial a truck all day. Martha, more coffee. Just yelling. It wouldn't matter. It didn't matter. Back then, it was carte blanche, anything. See, I love that. And we actually, it'll be interesting to see. Do we play Wisconsin this year? We should do a friendly wager. I know our volleyball team plays you guys. I just don't know if our football team does this year.
We're a volleyball school now.
Yeah, we're
DOI,
completely. And a bowling, by the way. We have an exceptional bowling team. 5 national championships, by the way, in the last 7 years.
It's fine. Not a big deal.
Not a big deal. We're just doing what we do. We're just knocking down pins. But back to the assets. Sorry. You just get stuck in this box. You only know the lanes you like. You only want to go to where you want to go. And you normally aren't. You're not normally in the mindset of hey, you know, I don't have a truck today. They don't respond back like brokers do, and they say, well, hey, my best option is for Thursday. Would that work? Where carriers are like, I'm not available today. Right? They don't think about, well, maybe I can pick this up tomorrow. It's not that big of a hurry. And for whatever reason, everyone's mind, if you get a load, everyone thinks it's got to move now.
Like, yeah, ASAP. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think 2 of the most missed questions in the sales process are right here. How fast does this customer need this? And how much is that load worth? Those are the 2 biggest missed questions in sales in trucking. I'll tell you that right now. Nobody asks how much the friggin' thing is. I remember we had a load one night going. I wasn't responsible for this, so if anyone's watching that worked with me at that time, it wasn't my fault, I swear. But it was over $1 million, and nobody had any idea. We were just trucking it down the road. Yeah. I'm like, if we'd have known, you know, our cargo insurance only covered up to $250, right? No idea, right? So when they say, hey, I only work with assets, you know, acknowledge, and then either A, do the comparison quote thing. Perfect. You know, I'd love an opportunity to, you know, at least maybe give you some comparison quotes. Right. Or B, maybe be that guy that you call when your assets are out of pocket. Because assets are out of pocket all the time. You're never in the right place on the right day with the right equipment.
So this is like a timing situation.
It's a timing thing. Always a timing thing. So let's see what George says here. As a company, you never want to just depend on a single company to manage your supply chain. Absolutely not. And that's a great. Actually, if you can say that in a non-rude way where it doesn't make them feel like they're not doing their job, right? It's a wonderful.
You can maybe talk through the benefits of having more than
one. Yeah, absolutely. Like how diverse is your suppliers within your supply chain?
I like that.
You know what I mean? Supply chains are more complex than just trucking, speaking to them from a different angle that just might get you in the door. Yeah, you hit it on the head. You know, you still have to have that showmanship 3. You know, if you guys wanted to, just go find 5 articles, combine them, and start calling shipping managers and say, hey, you know, this is what we do. I just wanted to give you a heads up of what we're doing. George is correct. Brokers give more freedom to ship the day you want to the area you need. Also bring competitive pricing rather than just going with the only option with the asset. Exactly. Bingo. I love that. I love our audience.
I do too. That's good feedback. A few more for you, man. Okay. I know you kind of answered the, you know, maybe the bad experience with brokers. I know you're a big fan of asking maybe what they went through with that, but
yeah.
How about a company? This might be a little bit easier too. How about a company or a shipper that's maybe not during their busy season, so they don't have any freight to move at this moment, and they give you the whole, hey, call me back in 6 months.
Yeah, I love this actually because it allows me to build what I like to call a value road. Okay. And I can start trudging up. When somebody says it's not my season, first off, you should friggin' know that.
Right.
You really should do enough research that you know that friggin' pistachios only ship in friggin' September. I'm just kidding, actually. I have no idea when pistachios ship. But you should know that.
Yeah.
You know what I missed, though, as a little kid? I used to go to get haircuts. By the way, haircuts back then, like my dad, for kids were $3 and my dad was $5. And my dad barely had any hair anyway. They always had those machines where you put a quarter in and you scroll it and you get some peanuts or you maybe get some M&Ms or something. Yeah. They used to have red pistachios. Okay. Maybe I'm dating myself, but I don't know why they dyed those pistachios. If anyone knows, I would love to know. Either way, when I can build, sorry about the pistachio thing, when I can build a value road for the next 6 months, I think this is huge. I can start asking more pointed questions about their supply chain and what, it's almost like a game for me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We just hit this company at halftime. What do they want to do better in the second half? You know what I mean? And so I can ask more pointed questions. What worked during this growing season? What was some of the challenges that you saw during the growing season, right? Mm-hmm. And I can start to build up that case of getting set up, being ready to be, in the situation. Produce season is real. I mean, it gets wild. You know what I mean? Hatch green chilies, sign me up, by the way. You can just start roasting them now. Let's just get the thing going. Remember that guy that used to do that? You could buy him over here. He had hatch green chili, and he had that huge torch, and he's like, I got roasted green chilies. They're the best ever. Oh my gosh. I just go home and just eat them raw. I didn't even eat them. But when you're out of season, they don't have freight right now. Great time to start adding value and really start to go. But you're going to have to follow up. Yeah. You're going to have to be intentional with your follow up, and you're really going to have to provide some value because they have the carriers. They got through the season. Has anyone heard of any produce that's at your local supermarket that they just didn't get their friggin' shipment of watermelons? No, they had a truck. Someone showed up and did what they were supposed to do, right? So you've got to provide some value. Can you imagine watermelon season without trucking? It doesn't work. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind that you're a value-added person, you're a value-added service that you do, and go in confidently and start to build value for those people. So I love that it's not their time. I think it's important. If you don't know, hat in hand, be humble and say, I appreciate you telling me that it's not in season right now. What is a busy season for you? Start asking those questions. That's my rebuttal. Hey, I don't have any freight right now. It's not our season. Perfect. When's our season? How does your trucking process work? If it's not his season, guess what? He's got a lot of time on his hands, and you can ask some really fun questions. Right. So take it as an opportunity to have 3 or 4 arsenal-based questions you got in your gun, and you can just start asking them about what worked. What was the most challenging? What's the craziest thing you've seen? Right?
Yeah, I like that.
Those are my thoughts.
All these objections that we talked about today, you're not going to land a customer your first call, right? You're going to hear a lot of these rejections almost daily if you're calling every day. So take it day by day.
Yeah.
I've met a couple brokers though. It's their first week on the job and they got lucky. But you're going to hear these objections. I think it's great to kind of sit back and watch other shows that are talking through these objections and learn how to handle it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to hear the same thing over and over, so it might as well try to get clever on how to either acknowledge it or answer it or whatever that may look like. But so I'm glad we got to pick your brain today because you've been through a shit ton of phone calls in your life, whether it's face to face, phone to phone, Zoom to Zoom, right? So you've been through some things, and I'm glad that we got to pick your brain today, talk through some of these objections. But any closing thoughts for people out there maybe struggling with making phone calls? Any closing thoughts for them?
I think the Nick Saban quote, of running each play at the level that you can to be the best that you are, you're going to go back and say, dang it, that didn't work. Or I shouldn't have said that. Right. Just learn from each experience and just make the best call you can each time. You know what I mean? Agree. And George said it earlier, you have to be in the right mindset. You've got to be just ready to go, ready to kind of chatter, ready to kind of just see where they're at, and just try to create something out of nothing, really.
Right. And I like how you mentioned earlier in the show, a lot of people are probably on vacation right now.
Oh,
The
yeah.
holidays coming up. They want to
Yeah.
maybe get, out on the road early. I think this is a great opportunity to kind of hammer down some
Yeah.
calls, build your pipeline.
Yep.
That's the benefit of e-carrier chat.
Oh, yeah.
We can show you all these fantastic leads of
Oh,
shippers.
incredible leads.
What types of equipment they're using.
Yeah.
You got their insights of their company there, their website, social media, everything that you're going to really need to, help yourself prepare that phone call.
Yeah.
So if you haven't checked us out yet, sign up for a demo, hit us up.
Yep.
Let's talk through your way of your, what your pipeline looks like.
Yeah.
We love looking at pipelines.
Absolutely.
Record yourself making a sales call for, listen to that too. So, Jared, again, thank you, man. And thanks to everyone watching. Like I said, we hit 5,000 subscribers.
That's incredible. Thank you.
And, we wouldn't have done it without the people, that are watching today and those that continue to watch us. And if you guys have thoughts or ideas that we could do on the show,
Hit us up.
hit us up. So you guys have a good rest.